Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. It iced and snowed last night again. We had high winds. They say it was close to blizzard conditions. We didn't get a lot of snow, but it's a mess. And there's ice out there, and I wish I didn't have to go anywhere, but I do later on. Um, how are you doing with your preparedness? I hope you're doing well, but I want to talk about that. You know, we've talked about lately. We've talked a lot about um, the importance of not being fearful in your preparedness or your life. And over on the Patreon channel, there's been kind of a discussion, not an ongoing discussion, but a lot of people have made their point that 10 years ago or so, there were a lot more positive preparedness channels on YouTube than there are today. And I think that's true. I used to enjoy watching quite a few of them. Now I don't watch very many because it's all devolved, it seems, into one big fear party trying to scare the dickens out of people and telling them everything that's wrong with the world and how everything's going to be horrible and it's the end of the world and all that. And I'm not saying that the world is a peachy place, but the world, for the most part, is what you make it. Things have always been challenging for those who, weren't making the right decisions. And the difference between people and how they were able to function and participate in the world as it evolves had a lot to do with how they were able to adapt and how prepared they were, the fear porn has, I think, destroyed a lot of people who otherwise would have been able to prepare more positively, and it's destroyed a lot of the reputation of the preparedness world. Many people say that fear is a great motivator, and I disagree. I've trained a lot of people for many years in a lot of things, and I never used harsh training methods, and I never used fear. Fear is not a great motivator, it's a great manipulator. And the person who only responds to fear is someone who's always going to be responsive to outside forces, outside stimuli, as opposed to the proper motivation from within. And that's where real motivation comes from. Motivation doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. And as it as it applies to preparedness, that motivation has to start with, as you've heard me say many times, if you've been with me before, responsibility. Preparedness is simple responsibility. It's living a responsible life. But it's also the ultimate responsibility and the ultimate irresponsibility. And what I mean by that is that once you recognize that the world is not always a safe place, that the world does not always go the way you want it to, that dangers occur, that catastrophes occur, that problems occur. Just look at the people affected by Hurricane Helene, whatever, down in western North Carolina. The world didn't come to an end for most people, but it certainly did for many of them. And a lot of them, how they came out of it depended a lot on how prepared they were for that. Things can happen all the time. And being afraid and being consumed with fear doesn't help you at all. It's a matter of approaching preparedness, hopefully like you approach your life in a balanced, understanding, responsible way with common sense and good decision making. And that's what I want to talk about right now. If you are interested in preparedness, which I assume you are since you're watching this, it's important that you approach it properly. Now, many on here are very advanced. I don't call them preppers, I call them PMPs, preparedness-minded people. They are far down the road of preparedness. They've been doing it for years. They've been, and they do it properly, meaning keeping their eyes on many balls at the same time, understanding that preparedness is not a one-shot thing or a one interest thing or a one demand thing, that it covers all aspects of your life, so that if you have a problem, you need to be prepared for all of the things that that problem could bring to you. Okay. Now, for the newer people, I want to tell you that you should not feel as if you are way far behind, and let that feeling of whether inadequacy or that it's too late or whatever, you should not let that affect you at all. If you have gained an interest in preparedness, good for you. You are on the right road. You may not be as far down the road as others. That's okay. You're on the right road, and now just keep going. And I can tell you that 10 years ago, and I don't remember, to be honest, how long ago I started watching YouTube preparedness channels, but I'd call it maybe 10 years, right? And I think it was a little bit before I wrote my first book. And there were people even back then telling you, or telling people, maybe you weren't there, are telling people that if they hadn't started, if they weren't prepared yet, it was too late. They were just gonna, whatever. It was too late. They may as well not even bother, because it was coming, whatever it may be, the end of the world, the crash of the economy, the crash of the country, the crash of the world, whatever. And that kind of negativity is difficult for me to understand, and probably difficult for many of you to understand. I'm sure many of you right now are going, oh my gosh. Well, these were the fearmongers, and sadly they have increased as opposed to decreased, and you hear more of them now than even back then. But just realize, even 10 years ago, there were people saying, it's too late, and if you're not prepared, you suck, and the world's gonna, it's just gonna be terrible for you. Well, 10 years have shown that they weren't right, they weren't correct. People have been promising the end of the world for 2,000 years, and a lot of people have been scared of that. And it hasn't happened. You know what has happened? Life. Life has happened. And those many things that bring us problems, challenges of great or small degree, and our ability to weather those and kind of even out the highs and lows depends entirely on how prepared we are to deal with them. So let's talk for just a few minutes on getting back to basics. What are the basics? What are the basics of preparedness? Now, I've been at this a long time, and I've said before that I've been living a preparedness lifestyle for 50 years. Now, my preparedness lifestyle may be different than other people's preparedness lifestyles, okay? The homesteaders who live on a homestead or raise animals and grow much of their own food, that's one type. I don't grow my own animals, or I don't raise my own animals. I don't have a wheat field out back, but preparedness has been central to my life for 50 years, well, right after I went into law enforcement. And if you count the years before that, since the Boy Scouts, I'll add another 10 years to that. So I've probably been at least preparedness aware or involved, to be honest, for 60 years. And I have needed that. I have used that preparedness many, many, many times. Okay, and when I've had a situation come up, there was a challenge or whatever, I was able to deal with it, depending on the degree to which I had prepared to be able to deal with that. And it's increased over the years. It's increased a lot. Now, not much bothers me. Okay, but it was a process. But when you're starting out, think about the same thing that more advanced preparedness-minded people think about, and that is to have an overall plan. So, to basics here. What are the basics? Well, the basics mean that no matter what happens, you're going to be able to, whether it's inflation, whether it's food shortage, whether it's a boil order in your area, whether it's an attempted burglary on your house, whether it's an attempted assault on you when you're out, you have thought about it and prepared for it. So people always think about what are the basics, and there's the rule of threes, many of you heard. I'm not going to go into detail because these aren't exact. These are just things to keep in mind, okay? 3 minutes without air, you've heard that. Okay. 3 hours in a life-threatening environment without proper clothing or shelter. 3 days without water. Well, you can go longer than 3 days without water, to be honest, but you're going to stop functioning at peak. So you don't want to go through that, right? And then 3 weeks without food, and that's the general type of thing. And people have lived a lot longer than 3 weeks without food. But that's kind of the hierarchy of needs when it comes to preparedness. Okay, so what do you want to do? Well, your first is air. For the most part, we don't have to worry about that, except now there are some people out in these wildfire areas like they had in California, or like they're having down in Carolina now. The smoke from the wildfires can be a real problem. They can be a health risk. You can succumb from breathing smoke, right? So do you want to be able to protect yourself against that? Well, that would take getting gas masks and respirators and things like that. Most people aren't going to do that, to be real honest. They're not going to do that. But just realize that what are your steps when these things happen. You know that you need to be in a situation where you're not breathing smoke, right? So when something happens, what's your response if there's a fire coming towards you is to get out. That doesn't affect most people. Water, that's your next need. What do you have in a way of preparedness equipment, supplies for having potable water? Well, we've used a Berkey for 10 years, longer than that maybe. We drink all of our water through a Berkey. We're on city water, and so we just fill up the Berkey. But we don't cook with city water. We don't drink city water, public water, whether you're on rural water or whatever. I wouldn't drink it. If you wanna be grossed out, go to your water department and see everything that it's reported on most websites. What's in their water? You read that, you'll never want to drink again. So you want to be able to process water from, you want a water source, whether you have a river, a creek, a pond, a lake close by to you. You don't want to drink out of those. So you want something that you can process the water through, filter the water. I suggest Berkey. Other people suggest other things. Do your own research on that. And then you want to have stored water. And there are many ways to do that. When you're just starting out, rinse out your 2-liter bottles. Hopefully you don't drink pop, it's bad for you. But if you do, rinse those out and fill them with water. And then when you need them, run them through your Berkey. And you can store a lot of water in 2-liter bottles. And if you don't drink pop, good for you, you're healthier. But you probably have friends who do, and so ask them, could I have your 2 liters when you're done? And you don't have to tell them that you're a prepper and you're hiding and you're stocking water in your garage. You can just say you're working on projects. Okay. Oh, they sure be happy to give you that. So store water and then have the ability to process water and make it drinkable. Okay. The last thing you want to do, I write about it in my book, last thing you want to do is be drinking bad water and have some physical problems when you're trying to survive other things, right? Plus you need it to wash and all sorts of things. Food. It's not difficult to stock food. Well, I think maybe my second or third video that I ever did was about survival food. And it wasn't about these things. There are so many commercials now. I bet that there's going to be one on this video. I would just bet. About survival food, whether it's Patriot Supply or Augustin Farms, or I don't remember. I don't know all of them, but You see them all the time, right? Promoted posts on Breitbart and things, and they're very expensive and they're not that good. Let me just put it that way. And it's not something that you would uh, eat on a regular basis. I think one of the first to really start pumping this in the media anyway was Glenn Beck, and he was talking about food insurance. Well, I think that's great. You need food insurance. But the way to do it is not to go out and spend a whole lot of money on these so-called survival foods in their 5-gallon buckets. Go to your grocery store. And I would suggest go back. You can find it. I think that it's still, if I will find it and I'll put it on the Patreon channel just in case you can't find it back in mine. So if you're not with us on the Patreon channel, the link's down below. You should come join us if you're really interested in preparedness. We'd love to have you. There's a lot of smart people over there, and they give information in addition to me, and you'll be glad that you did. You'll get a lot out of it. It costs $1 a month, and I'll find that one that I did many years ago on stocking food, and it'll tell you everything that you need to know. So I'll put that on Patreon. But just go to the grocery store, stock regular food. Pretty much anything in a can. Well, to be honest, people will tell you need to rotate your canned goods. Well, they've found canned goods in sunken river boats that were canned 150 years ago and are still good. Now, am I telling you to eat 150-year-old food? No. But that shows you that the canning process, which is better now than it was then, is going to retain most of the nutrients of whatever was in the can. Now, it'll lose a little taste. It might taste a little, but it's not going to look as good, but you can survive on it. But for the most part, what we are talking about is much more short-term than 150 years, right? And I've said that whenever we not only will buying food and buy it on sale, go to the grocery store, buy your canned goods, buy rice. I'm not a big one on dry beans. Okay, I think you should stock beans, but the thing about dry beans is that you need a lot of water to prepare them. So see, that takes away from your water supplies. But however you do it, you do it. But rice and beans is a good staple to start with. But don't stop there. Canned meat. You need protein. There will be people who will tell you, well, rice and beans put together make a complete protein. Yeah, but it's not as high a quality as animal protein. So as you're stocking these other things, your vegetables and your rice and your beans, and you do it slowly. You got a little extra money, buy extra every time you go to the store, start putting it on the shelves, and you'll be surprised how quickly it will come along. And you'll be surprised also how quickly, how much different you feel when you look down there and say, you know what, I could live a month on this stuff. You're going to feel differently. And then you keep going, and it kind of gives you the impetus to keep going. And then you'll say, wow, I think I've got 6 months of this stuff. Now, the staple that I like is pasta. Okay? Pasta keeps as well as rice does, and it has protein in it, which rice really doesn't. Rice has a little bit. Not much. And like I say, I like the canned beans because it comes with the water and the fluids already with it. But you do, what's right for you. But there's just a lot of things, and I talk about it on that video. I don't need to get into it anymore here. But increase your emergency food supply, which simply means your storeroom. You should have a complete storeroom of anything you need. You shouldn't have to go to the store for anything. And when you buy on sale, that's one of the best investments you can make. Whenever Kelly was just fixing some dip for a family birthday the other day, and she asked me to go down and get some corn out of our supplies. And so I did, and I brought up 4 cans of corn. Now, the thing is, I paid 29 cents a can for those cans of corn. It's probably $1.79, something like that. So each one of those cans of corn has effectively increased in price by $1.50. Do you see where the investment value is in food? And I think some of them were from 2017. They didn't taste any different. Yeah. So look into this, and don't worry about the people that will say, well, yeah, but you got to rotate them. Well, okay, rotate them after every 10 years. They're going to be fine. But the old saying that stock what you eat and eat what you stock is important too. Get the food that you like to eat. That's another reason that I'm not a believer in these emergency food kits. Nobody eats those. Nobody wants to eat those if they have a choice, right? So get the food that you like. Now, I have to admit that I have a lot of spam and a lot of canned ham and canned meats and canned chicken and things like that. My family doesn't really like it, but you know what? If push comes to shove and they need it, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right? Okay. So take care of your food situation. The next is your shelter. Is your shelter in good shape? You might live on a big ranch. You might live on a farm. Take care of everything, right? You might live in the suburbs. You might live in the city. Are you secure there? Have you secured your place? Because your home should be your fortress. You should be able, it's where you are the safest. So make sure that you've done the things that make it as safe as you can. Secure your doors, secure your windows, have alarms, have cameras if that's your thing, have a big mean dog, you know, and because you should feel, and then have the ability to defend yourself on all levels, and you know what I mean by that. Okay. Make sure that you have proper clothing. A lot of people don't. I'm surprised at how many people kind of feel like they're into preparedness, but they don't have clothing that would really be good enough if the grid went down, if there were lights out. They don't have the equipment. Do you have the right clothes? Do you have sleeping bags? Do you have ways to cook your food if the gas is shut off? Through a hack attack on the gas service, or the electricity goes off. Can you stay warm? When the grid goes down, heat and light are the two most important things immediately. And you need to be able to provide your own. Do you have enough flashlights? Do you have enough batteries? Do you have a generator? How are you going to provide for all of those things? And this is the key to integrative preparedness, is to be able to live separately from all those external interrelated systems over which you have little or no control. Okay. If you want, that's what I wrote my book about, a grid down as a result of my books, as a result of a CME, a coronal mass ejection. If you want to really get started on it and know how to do it, this will inspire you. My first book, The Reversion. It came out in 2017. Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, I'm not sure, I forget the count. People all over the world have read this and learned a lot from it. They've loved the story, and they have learned a lot from it. And you know what? It's just the first book of the series, which you would also love if you're really interested in not just a good story, but preparedness. It's the first of the Stonemont series, my series of books. I'll plug it right here so that you know. The Reversion, the Revival, the Renewal, An Appeal to Heaven, The Blessings of Freedom, Hostages to Fortune, and the latest one, which is On Wings Like Eagles. And it's a story of a family who followed the basics of preparedness, and who, as a result of their preparedness, were able to continue living very well when the whole world collapsed. I think on the start of this it says, when the world collapsed, some were ready to start over. That's right, and they were, and I explained exactly how they did it. And not only were they able to continue living very well, but they were able to help people. And the whole series is about the rebuilding of community and social justice, not social justice like we think of it, right, but comparative justice, how government should work. There's a lot of history in here, but don't worry, you'll be learning, you'll be enjoying while you learn, because you'll love the characters and you'll love the story. You can get this through Amazon, but the best way to get it is directly through me, through my website. And you can get the whole set through the website. You can't do that through Amazon. But our website is stonemont.us. And if you go there, we have a discount when you buy the whole set. Plus, we stick in the Stonemont notebook for you, which is really cool. People love that. I use mine all the time. So if you want to see, really get the whole roadmap of how to prepare, and you know, if you're just starting off in preparedness, this will get you zooming. This will get you going, and you will approach preparedness in a positive way instead of a negative way, and that's the way you need to do it. Plus, you'll love the story. You'll love the characters. I've had a couple of people tell me they've fallen in love with a couple of characters, and it's. I agree. Just a second. So, you know, preparedness is not that difficult, and it's not something that should be entered into out of fear. Something that should be entered into with great hope, and hope for the future. And also, don't let these people, the negative people out there, tell you, you know, that there's a lot of little catchphrases that sound good, sound cool, but they're not really true when you look down at them. They'll tell you hope is not a plan. Well, hope is not a plan. It's not meant to be a plan. Hope, as one of our patrons pointed out, I think this morning I was reading, hope is the spark. Hope is the spark that makes you want to work for a better tomorrow. I also read something that I might put up on Patreon. Did I tell you you should join us on Patreon? The link's right down below. It just costs you $1 a month. You'll like it. But remember that today, depending on how you approach your life, just think, today is the worst day of the rest of your life. What does that mean? That sounds negative, doesn't it? It's not. It means that every day from here on out should get better for you. There are a lot of people out there that want you to be afraid. A lot of people out there that don't want your life to get better. Do you know why? Because they're not working to get their life better, and they you know, misery loves company, right? They'd rather have you hold back with them in fear than for you to get out there and actually progress and increase the quality of your life. And that's what I want. Most of my life I've spent training people how to do things. It was always to get them to be better, to help them, to show them the way to be better and have a better life. And that's what preparedness is. That's what preparedness is all about. Is making your life better every day while you're establishing yourself and preparing yourself to weather whatever storm may come your way. And it's not too late, and it's not too hard, and you can do it, and you should do it, because it's your responsibility for yourself and those who rely on you, right? Okay, I'm going to get out of here and go do my day. You all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.